What's going on, everybody? My name is Corey Johnson. This is my dad, Harold Johnson, and y'all now tuned in to Both Sides of the Game podcast. First and foremost, this is our very first episode, so please hit that subscribe button for us. Hey, man, it's been a long time coming, man. How you feeling?
Well, first of all, I want to thank God for putting this all together and moving when he says it's time to move. This has been a long time coming for me, and it's about to happen. So you people listening, prepare yourself, because I got a lot to talk about. Well, my name's Harold Johnson. They call me Harold Pete Johnson. I'm from South Jamaica, Queens. Grew up between two projects, Baisley and 40. Grew up right on Linden Boulevard. And any of you people know about ribs in New York, you know in Jamaica, Queens, they got a place called the Rib Shack. I grew up right behind it. And Baisley Projects was to my right and 40 was to my left. So I grew up between two notorious projects coming up in the 80s and into the 90s. The Supreme Team, Prince, Gerald Miller, shout out to him. Hopefully things will turn out great for him and he'll get his freedom.
Shout out
soon.
Prince.
Yeah, shout out Prince, no question. For me, I come from a family of 10 brothers and sisters, 3 girls, 7 boys, me being the youngest. Never was affiliated with any gangs or nothing like that. It was just the Johnson brothers. And of course, you know, if you just ask some questions in Queens, New York about the Johnsons, I'm quite sure that you'll get some answers that'll make it, you'll just say to yourself, oh. But moving forward, my mother and father both from North Carolina. And for myself, for me, growing up in Jamaica, Queens, experiencing drug use, seeing drug use, seeing drugs being sold, seeing a high level of murder rate at one time, and again, being a part of tearing down my community, I decided to change my life and come back and try to help fix it. And one of the things I did is I came back to Jamaica, Queens, and ran a program, by the way, that was inspired by Gerald Prince Miller. We had a conversation one day. Shout out to him, man. Just keep fighting, bro. Your freedom's on its way. We had a conversation about the youth, how we can change their mindset. And I said, well, man, right now I'm working on doing a tournament of peace to fight gun violence. And he said, you know what? Keep doing that, man. Do more things. Try to open up an outreach center. So I was able to do that. First outreach center in Jamaica, Queens, right on Linden Boulevard, across from the Rib Shack. By the way, I didn't get any help from the so-called politicians, but God is good. God made a way for everything to work out. So I started doing a day of peace. And what we did is we set up a clinic in the morning from 9 to 11, teaching kids fundamentals. Then we fed the kids at 12. And then we had a game of peace. So we had the first ever game of peace, 40 against Baisley, which, by the way, we didn't have any problems. Wasn't no smoking weed, wasn't no gunplay, wasn't none of that. So from the game of peace, we went on to the tournament of peace. For 6 years we did this. With the outreach center, also, when we opened that was another part of the program that really did well. We fed kids, mentored them, just made sure the kids ate every day, and it was a great thing to do. But however, with not getting on funding, we wasn't able to keep it open. But God still made a way for me to continue giving back to the community. I want to take some time out here. One thing, I just wanted to check one thing here. The 5-Star Basketball Camp, when we talk about sponsors, Will Klein, Howie Garfinkel, who created the 5-Star Basketball Camp in 1966, with U.B. Brown and Chuck Daly, created this hell of a camp. And I don't know about you guys, if you just watch the NBA, seeing LeBron James lose against Denver, I'm just going to name some of the players that went through there. LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony, Chris Paul, Stephen Curry, his brother, Michael Jordan, the list goes on. All these guys came through five-star basketball camp. But there was one player that nobody knew about. His name is Ronnie Johnson. That's my brother. He was the first MVP at five-star in 1966, beating out John Roach and Tom Owens, who was back then was white players that was basically one of the top two players in the country. Ronnie, an unknown from Van Buren High School, rest in peace to his coach, Marv Kessler, who brought him there as a junior. And I don't know, Mr. Garfinkel, Mr. Klein said they gave the first MVP to my brother, Ron Johnson. So he was considered to be the best guard to ever play there to this day.
Don't forget Sonny, too. Sonny Vaccaro.
Yeah, Sonny Vaccaro. Shout out to Sonny. Well, by the way, Sonny, I seen the Air movie. It was great.
Nice. Loved it.
Yeah, and thank you for the interview you gave me. And hopefully we'll be able to get Mr. Garfinkel's documentary going, because he has a great story as well. I'll talk about that with Stephen Curry, how he told me to come down here and talk to Dell and get Steph in the camp, and it worked out great. So just a few things about some things up and coming. We got some other segments where I'm going to talk about, just growing up in Jamaica and making a turning point to come to North Carolina. By the way, both sides of the game was actually established in North Carolina, and we're here now in Morrisville at my daughter's event space. By the way, she's got some spots open. During the week, so you
Shout out
guys
to
got
my
to get in
sis.
here.
Pull
Shout
up.
out to Regina. She's over there
Pull
in the
up.
corner.
Alchemy 22.
Yeah,
Pull up.
Yeah. We got some space available here, some slots if you want to get in. But both sides of the game was established in North Carolina. Shout out to North Carolina. Everybody was thinking it came from New York, but no, it was established here 23 years ago on Milton Road in Harris at the office. And what does it mean? What does both sides of the game mean? People ask it. Well, both sides of the game is just that. What side are you on, the good or the bad? You can't try to straddle the fence. You can't do bad and good at the same time, because it's not going to happen. It's just not. So my thing is, when I talk to kids, I'll always tell them, listen, man, what side of the game are you on? The good or the bad? So,
So, I mean, since we're on that topic, I guess people would really want to know, like, what it was like for you growing up. Like, what was daily life for you growing up back in the days, 60s, whatever?
Well, yeah. Well, I was born in 1963, and growing up, starting from 10 years old, I wanted to be a basketball star like my brother, Ron Johnson. I looked at him, idolized him. He was, I'm just going to keep it real, he was a gangster. He was a ball player by the day and a gangster at night. And then it took a turn for the worse. In 1969, him and my cousin, Richard Johnson, got into something, and my brother was shot up and he went to prison, so his career stopped. But while he was in prison, he was still able to get a scholarship to Wheeling University. Now, I don't know about you. I know everybody talk about Pee Wee Kirkland, this and that, but this is documented that it happened. After being shot 7 times, he was still able to dunk and score 30, 40 a game and was able to get a scholarship. So I idolized him, and that's probably one of the things that kind of turned me to street life. Now, I played high school ball. I'm not one to lie on my game. A lot of you guys be out there, I averaged 30, and I did this, I played with this guy.
Tell the truth.
I'm telling the truth. I was okay. Could I have went to college? Absolutely. I went to the 12th
D1?
grade. Maybe a JUCO first.
Right.
But that's still okay. You look at Jimmy Butler. He went JUCO route.
Okay.
You look at him now. I played for Far Rockaway High School. Coach Paul DeLara. He's okay, coach. He didn't believe in me, but I was still able to get on the court every now and then. He would put me in. I played with a guy by the name of Pookie Wilson. They called him Mr. Entertainer. May he rest in peace. He was no joke. Another guy by the name of Arnold Saunders. We all played together. So that was basically it for me. Once I started, the ball game didn't go right for me. I went to the streets. I sold a little weed, things like that. And it got heavy as I got older. But what changed me was when I got married. When I left New York. And shout out to Carol Johnson. If it wasn't for her, well, she got me out of New York. Let's say that. I got two beautiful kids, and I have a beautiful granddaughter, Natalia, and Regina, my daughter, and God bless me with her. She's all over the place, by the way. She won't stop running around. But I moved down to Charlotte, and me and Carol got married. And like I say, if it wasn't for her, honestly, I don't think, I would be here today because I was heavy in the streets.
Gotcha. Well, so I know you mentioned 5-star. So when you, I know all this, but I want the people to know when you came down south, how did you even get connected to 5-star basketball camp?
That's a great question, son. I just got a little carried away with the other thing, but I just wanted to put that out there. Well, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Bird, I was coaching in 2 leagues, the East Meck League. And you was on that team, too. You were in Hakeem Nicks, by the way. Hakeem Nicks played for this team as well. I had 2 teams. I was in contact with 5-star, getting some tapes from them and things like that, watching their tapes. So I took Mr. Bird's son to the guard camp. Mr. Bird flew me up to Pittsburgh. And that's when I first met Mr. Howie Garfinkel. And that's when things really changed for me. He's the one that gave my brother the first MVP. So I go to Moon Township, Pittsburgh, Robert Morris University. I'm there with Mr. Bird. Wherever you're at, Mr. Bird, thank you for getting me there to meet Mr. Garfinkel because he had no idea who I was. So I'm standing there, and one of the coaches, this guy named Jacob Jonas, shout out to Jacob Jonas, because I always said I was going to tell the story, but I'm going to tell it now. Like I said, I got a lot to talk about. So this is just the beginning, so get ready. So I asked him, I said, hey, Coach, my name's Harold Johnson. I'm the brother of Ronnie Johnson. I'm here with a friend of mine, got his son here. So the guy said, what? Ronnie Johnson? The Ronnie Johnson? I said, yes, my brother. He said, come with me. Mr. Garfinkel, he would love to see you. So we walked down up to the courts on the outside, and I see a tent, it's called the Dome, the Hoop Dome. So I look in there, and I see a guy with yellow pants on and a white shirt, and he's smoking a cigarette, and they're talking to the kids. So Mr. Coach Jonah whispered something in his ear, and he says, where is he? So he brought me over to him. He said, you really Ronnie Johnson's brother? I said, yes, I'm his baby brother. He said, where you been on? He's like, we give a award out in his name, and nobody comes up. I said, well, I'm here. So he said, where you staying? I said, well, I'm staying at the Holiday Inn with my friend, Mr. Bird. He brought his son here. He said, no, you're not. You're going to stay here with me. I'm going to get you a room, and you're going to stay with me. So I was looking, I said, okay. So that's when everything changed for me as far as 5-star. 5-star basketball camp really, really, really changed how I looked at life. Really. By Mr. Garfinkel believing in me, and that day giving me a chance, and by the way, he put me to work that day. I forgot to leave that out. He gave me a whistle. Me and Coach Fajanic, I did my first station work. And after that, at the end of the camp, they give out awards. Now, mind you, this is the guard camp, and it's 2 MVPs. It's a Moses Malone Award and a Ron Johnson Award for the most promising prospect. So I'm sitting there at the table, had no idea that he was going to do this. So he says, when it got to the Ron Johnson Award, and I'm telling you, I had no idea. Unbelievable. I can remember this like it just happened yesterday. He goes, you know what's so special about 5-star? You never know who's going to be here. He said, there's a guy you guys been working with for the last 3.5 days. You probably don't know who he is. But he's the brother of the best guard that ever played here by the name of Ronnie Johnson. And if Ronnie was sitting here today, I would tell him, you know, you could have been the best. Ronnie got in some trouble. I'm not going to go into what happened to him. But here to present his brother's MVP award is Coach Harold Johnson. And the 350 kids stood up. They started clapping. And I walked up. He gave me the award, and I gave it to a kid. And that's when it all changed for me. Meeting Mr. Garfinkel, being a part of the 5-star camp, and you'll hear about the Michael Jordan story, how I met Mike at the camp. You'll hear about some things later on. So I give the award out, and as I'm walking out, he says to me, he said, "What are you doing for yourself?" I said, "Well, I'm down in Charlotte." He said, "How would you like to run a 5-star development scouting program down there?" I said, "Wow." Yeah, you know, it kind of threw me for a loop. I'm like, wow, that's heavy. 5-star basketball camp. Michael Jordan, Moses Malone, LeBron James, Carmelo Anthony. Come on. To be a part of that, not to mention the coaches, Calipari, Rick Pitino, Mike Krzyzewski, come on, Bobby Knight. To be a part of that. By the way, shout out to Coach Malone from the Denver Nuggets. I just got the word that he was the 5-star coach. So there we go. So anyway, I take on the task. I come back here to Charlotte. I set up the office. I recruited K.C. Rivers, Jeffrey Worley, some of the guys that I first took to camp, my son. You know, list goes on. I don't want to all give it up right now, son. I got to hold up.
We can tell.
I don't want to throw it all out there. But one of the things I had to battle was AAU. See, and shout out to AAU. I'm not knocking those guys, by the way. Rod Seaford, Ken Perry from the Monarchs, Coach Kerry from the Nets. Really, because, and let me tell you something. 5-star was a camp that deals with fundamentals. And back then, AAU was on the rise with playing games, going to tournaments. So my pitch was to some of the AAU parents, there's got to be a time when you bring your son to camp and let him work on his game. They'll get to play games during the day, but it's not games all day. So it worked. I was able to get some players to come to 5-star from Charlotte, and it just grew. It just grew, and we kind of built the bridge, right? We built the bridge, and then we crossed it, and we met at the middle of it. So also shout out to Malcolm Sanders from the Stars.
Shout out Malcolm, Coach Malcolm.
Yeah, Stars. He really was an important part of me because he didn't have a problem. And his son did really good at camp as well. He didn't have a problem with the kids going to camp. He felt it was good to get him to camp. So actually, K.C. Rivers, I don't know if Ken Perry, if obviously if he's listening, but if he gets word, I remember when Ken Perry let me see him, a guy by the name of Dow Rankin too, from the Monarchs. He actually showed me him, K.C. Rivers, and they sent him to camp. K.C. Rivers really did good. Really, really great players, one of the guys. But I'm not going to give up all the other guys that I bought from Charlotte and the North Carolina area as well. Also, short, quick story. Eric Maynard. Now, I was trying to hold this, son. But I got to give it up. I got to give this up. I was talking to a coach, and the guy said, go see Ken Perry. It's from the Monarchs, right? So I go see Ken Perry, and we had a practice. So I come in the gym, and he said, I'm going to give you this kid to take to Mr. Garfinkel and tell Mr. Garfinkel that this is a pro. He's going to be a pro. So I'm like, all right, whatever, So I see a guy just dribbling the ball on the sideline, going between his legs, just playing with the ball. Says, I watched him practice, I noticed his court vision, how he could find the man, find the open man, nice passes. And I brought him to Hampton Sydney in Farmville, Virginia. Ken Perry said, I just want you to do one thing. Take him to Golf and tell Golf that this is the first pro we're sending him. So I get to Farmville, Virginia. Hottest fish grease there, by the way. And I take Eric up to the table, Mr. Klein and Garfinkel sitting there, rest in peace. And I said, Garf, Ken Perry from Charlotte said, this is Eric Mena. He's a pro. He said, Harold, come on. The kid's in 10th grade. Get the kid to his bunk. Get him dressed. We'll take a look at him. All right? Okay, get him in there. I was like, all right. So during the camp, Eric Mena he's killing him. Now we're going to fast forward. NCAA tournament, first round. Duke against VCU. And what happens? Eric Mena destroyed him. Took him out. Right? I get a call. Beep, 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 beep. Phone rings. It's Garfinkel. Harold, they didn't believe you. You told them the guy was a pro. He took Coach K down. He took him down, Harold. He took him down. So the rest is history. Eric Mena goes to the NBA. But that's just one of the stories that I have about players from North Carolina that went to the 5-star basketball camp.
Yeah, I could speak on that. Eric Mena, he was an assassin. I remember seeing him. It was about 10 of us squeezed in a little van going up to Pittsburgh, and when I seen him, he was quiet. He just had his headphones on. We all joking around and laughing, and this dude is just in the back, hoodie on, headphones, just not saying nothing. So I'm thinking he like weird or something like that. But it just showed like his mentality was just different than everybody else's. Like he went up there with one thing on his mind, and he destroyed everybody. And it's crazy because on the way back, he was like a class clown type guy, making everybody laugh. So I always had respect for him after that. He's one of the best point guards I've witnessed with my own eyes. He's a very talented guy. But just staying on the 5-star topic, a lot of these kids today, they don't really understand what 5-star is. And I don't think they would be able to survive in a 5-star camp because, as you kind of touched on now, all they do really today is just play games, 3-4 games a day. They're not doing drills. 5-star, we was waking up at 6:30 in the morning, like some military type stuff. Whistles banging on your dorm door. We outside 6 in the morning, like stretching, getting ready to hoop. We doing drills. By noon, it's like 98 degrees. People passing out. Like it was a tough camp, and I think it's just a lost art because there's nothing like it anymore. And I feel like these kids today, the talent level is there, but I don't know if they would want to go through 5 days of that because it was low key 5 days of hell. But it made me better. I'm not gonna lie. It was definitely a great experience. And I was blessed to go. Now that I'm looking at it, I used to hate it, but I'm in my 30s now. I'm looking at it. I was blessed. I would go every year, so it's definitely a great experience for me.
Shout out to Donnell Mack, 5-star MVP. Played at Memphis with Calipari. He was another one here from Charlotte, man. Also to his father, Mr. Mack, he also was one of the parents that helped out to get the kids to Pittsburgh and provided the transportation to get the kids to where they needed to be. Donnell Mack, I can remember at Pittsburgh, him, William Graves, Eric Mena, all these guys was at camp together. And John Calipari came, and he was watching him. And he said, hey, this guy doesn't talk. I spoke to him, he just looked at me. I said, well, he's about his business, man. He just wants to just play the game. And little did we know that John Calipari recruited him, and he wound up playing at Memphis with Derrick Rose. And right now, he's doing a great job here in Charlotte. And this is when you talk about 5-star, it rubbed off on him. He's teaching the kids the game. So shout out to Donnell Mack. He's doing a great job. Also, Omar Carter, who's a 5-star camper, most promising prospect. Let me explain to you something about that award. I left him out. But Omar Carter, to me, was one of the big guards. He was the big guard, 6'5", could bring it up, shoot it. He played with Stephen Curry in high school. But the most promising prospect, that award LeBron James won Some other guys won. When you win that award, Ron Artest, when you win that award, you know what that award says? You're on your way. You're going to be an NBA player. Elton Brand. And when Omar won that award, I'm sitting back and Garth said, "Harold, where did you find this guy?" So I found him, man, out in Charlotte, man, the East Meck League. You know, him and another kid named Charles Dewhurst. He was another one. I bought the 5-star as well. Started coaching him. He won the MVP as well. So, you know, this touching on what 5-star basketball camp gave me an opportunity to be a part of. And I'm thankful and grateful, man, for that, for Mr. Klein and Mr. Garfinkel and rest in peace to Marv Kessler and Chuck Daly, these guys, but and UB Brown as well. UB Brown, I don't have the book with me, but the 5-star book, history book, UB Brown says Ronnie Johnson is the best player, if not the best, one of the best that ever came through 5-star. Now, let me tell you something. You're talking Isaiah Thomas, okay? You're talking those guys. You're talking about Vince Carter. You know, you're talking about Curry. You're talking about some top guys. And for my brother to be mentioned in those guys, in that caliber, come on. And hopefully we'll get this documentary done about his life. So, you know, this podcast, like I said, I got a lot to talk about. And I just wanted to start off with this one, just kind of giving you a brief, you know, just a layout of what's in store. Again, for me, being able to be a part of that and coming here to North Carolina, it really saved my life. It really did. So, son, you got any other things you want to talk about? Some other projects oh, by the way, I left this out. We not yet, but you're going to hear about it. It's called The Original Generals. I left that out. My cousin Mark Griffin, his family was the first black construction company on the East Coast, dating back to the 50s. Augusta, Georgia. They created the first black construction company. In 1973, there was a shooting of Clifton Glover. He was shot in the back by a police officer named Officer Shea. Riots occurred, a lot of bottles being thrown, windows broken, attacking of white people because of this. But there was one group of brothers, L.B. Griffin, Thomas Griffin, and his brothers. They decided, after a brief incident with their family with the police, they decided enough was enough, and they took all their heavy equipment and blocked up the whole Jamaica. Cars couldn't move until something was done. So shout out to Mark Griffin. Hopefully that documentary will start making its way to the screen. Showtime, HBO, maybe 2024. But shout out to him. That's one of the things we have on the table as well. With Gerald Miller having something to do with a story that he's working on. We got to keep that under the cap right now. But he has some things in store as well. But yeah, that's where I'm at with this podcast, man. There's a whole lot that I want to cover. Just talking about, you know, things that need to be brought to light. When we're talking about the new generation of kids coming up, I think that. Let me just shout out to the Furtado brothers, Life Camp, all the programs all over the country that's working to fight gun violence. As I said earlier in this podcast, that my program, Both Sides of the Game, that's one of the things that we were just fed up with, is the youth on youth murders out there. in every city, especially in New York. At one time, it was out of control. So shout out to all of the programs that's trying to save the next generation of youth. It's important that you continue to fight, because the fight is not over. The fight continues every day. Even here in Charlotte, there's a shooting every day here, a murder every day. I just seen something on the news where a kid was playing on his block on the basketball goal. 17 years old, was shot in his back, and he died at the hospital. So we must continue to fight gun violence. We must continue to work together. We must continue to push the politicians to focus on that, because we have to change their mindset of how they think. And if we don't do it, who's going to do it? Not the government. We have to do it.
Right, man. Well, I want to thank y'all. If y'all made it this far, we appreciate you, appreciate the love. Like I said, if you're feeling the content that we just gave y'all, please hit that like button and subscribe to us. And we'll be back, man. It's Both Sides of the Game podcast. We out.
Yeah, we got a lot to talk about in the next segment.